My dad noticed I had no car. I confessed my mother-in-law took it to control me. At first, it seemed like a small, embarrassing moment. My dad noticed I didn't arrive with my car and casually asked what happened. What he didn't know was that behind my forced smile was a painful truth I'd been hiding for months. In this episode of Revenge Stories, I finally confessed that my mother-in-law had taken my car, not because of an emergency, but as a way to control me. This story goes far beyond a missing car. It's about manipulation, power, and how control can slowly strip someone of their independence. As you watch this chapter of Revenge Stories, you'll see how emotional pressure inside a family can be just as damaging as open conflict. Every favor came with strings attached, and every silence was a warning. What makes this one of the most intense revenge stories on the channel is how it unfolds. The truth I shared with my dad triggered a chain reaction no one expected. Boundaries were crossed, lies were exposed, and the balance of power shifted in a way that changed everything. Sometimes the moment you speak up is the moment control starts to crumble. If you've ever felt trapped by family expectations, financial dependence, or emotional manipulation, this story will feel painfully familiar. Revenge stories like this remind us that standing up for yourself doesn't always look loud. It often starts with one honest confession. And once the truth is out, there's no going back. Stay with this Revenge Stories episode until the end to see how control turned into regret, and how a simple question from a father became the spark that set everything free. Have you ever had something taken from you to keep you in line? Like this video if you believe independence matters. Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. Subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that expose hidden family truths. Family control, mother-in-law drama, family betrayal, emotional abuse, revenge journey. Tags: revenge stories, family drama, controlling in-laws, toxic family, real-life revenge, emotional manipulation, true life stories. My dad saw me struggling with my baby by my side. He asked, "Why are you walking? Where's your car?" I said, "His mom took it. Said I'm lucky they keep me here." My dad just said, "Get in the car. We fix this tonight." What happened next? I was standing on the gravel shoulder of US Route 17, just outside a stretch of pine woods in coastal South Carolina, when I realized my marriage had officially turned into something dangerous. The sun was barely up. My sneakers were soaked from the morning dew. Tractor trailers flew past inches from my elbow, shaking the ground hard enough to rattle my teeth. I had my 3-year-old pressed against my chest, his arms locked around my neck, his breath hot and uneven from crying himself to sleep. I remember thinking, if I trip, we die. That was the moment my father's pickup skidded to a stop in front of me. His old black Ford F-150 cut across the shoulder like a barricade. The door flew open. My father jumped out so fast I thought he might fall. His face wasn't panicked. It was pale and furious in a way I'd only seen once before, when he'd responded to a fatal crash back when he was still a police captain. "Claire," he shouted over the traffic, "where's your car?" I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time in months, I told the truth. "Mark took my keys," I said. "He says I'm not safe to drive anymore." The silence that followed was louder than the highway. Inside the truck, the air conditioner blasted cold air that dried the sweat on my face but did nothing for the tight knot in my chest. My son, Ben, passed out the second I buckled him into the car seat, his thumb still tucked in his mouth. The adrenaline drained out of me all at once, leaving my hands shaking so badly I had to sit on them. "How long?" my father asked. He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed locked on the road. His grip on the steering wheel was so tight his knuckles were white. He wasn't asking as my dad. He was asking like a man trained to build timelines. "About 6 months," I said quietly, "since Ben turned 2. He exhaled through his nose. Sharp, controlled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it didn't look like abuse," I said. "That's the trick." It hadn't started with yelling, or threats, or fists. It started with dinner. Mark's mother, Linda, showing up with a rotisserie chicken from Costco and saying, "You look wiped out, honey. Let me help." Mark offering to take over the bills because he worked in finance and numbers stressed me out. Little things, helpful things, normal things. I stared out the window at the passing Dollar Generals and gas stations, watching the world blur. I needed him to understand the mechanics of it. How a life shrinks without you noticing. You ever heard the boiling frog story? I asked. Drop a frog into boiling water, it jumps out. Put it in cold water and heat it slowly, it stays until it's dead. That was my life, 1 degree at a time. First, Linda started staying overnight. Then she was reorganizing my kitchen. Then she was correcting how I folded towels, how I fed my kid, how I spent $20 at Walmart. Every time I pushed back, Mark said I was anxious, emotional. Postpartum stuff, he called it. My father's jaw tightened. Did a doctor say that? He asked. No, I said. Mark did. The truck slowed. My father signaled and pulled onto the shoulder. That's not help, he said calmly. That's a setup. And that was the first crack in the wall I'd been living inside. My father didn't start the engine right away. The truck idled softly, the dashboard clock blinking 7:18 a.m. Outside, traffic kept moving. People on their way to work. Coffee in cup holders. Radios tuned to morning news. Normal life continuing like nothing had happened. You're saying he didn't hit you? My father said carefully. No, I answered. He didn't have to. That was the part people never understood. Abuse didn't always leave bruises. Sometimes it left spreadsheets, password changes, quiet decisions made for your own good. Mark never raised his voice. He smiled when he told me I was wrong. He sounded reasonable, concerned, like a man being patient with someone fragile. I rubbed my palms together, feeling the raw skin from gripping Ben's carrier straps for miles. He started checking my phone, I said. Said it was to make sure I wasn't doom scrolling. Bad for my mental health. Then he wanted my location on at all times, just in case. My father nodded once. Slow. I stopped calling you, I admitted. I didn't want to worry you, and I didn't want them knowing I was questioning things. The word them hung in the air. Mark. His mother. A united front that always looked calm, reasonable, polite. They never argued with me in public. They corrected me gently. In private, where no one could hear. I kept thinking, I said, if I just stayed calm enough, quiet enough, they'd give me my life back. The truck shifted into gear. We're not going back to talk, my father said. Panic flared in my chest. Dad? We're going back to get your things, he said, steady as stone. You're leaving that house today, and you're not walking on the side of a highway ever again. The neighborhood came into view a few minutes later. Gated, manicured. The kind of place with HOA signs and identical mailboxes. Mark loved this house. Called it an investment. Called it stability. As we turned onto the long, clean driveway, I saw them. Mark on the patio, scrolling on his tablet. Linda beside him, laughing, holding a glass of white wine like it was already noon. They looked peaceful. They looked like people who had not just sent a mother and child walking down a highway shoulder. And that's when I realized something important. They thought they'd already won. My father parked the truck near the end of the driveway, where the concrete met the gravel. His pickup looked out of place among the imported sedans and spotless SUVs lined up like trophies. For a second, neither of us moved. The house sat there quiet and perfect. Beige siding, black shutters, trimmed hedges, the American dream wrapped in vinyl and stone. Stay here, my father said. I didn't. I unbuckled Ben's car seat, my fingers clumsy, my heart thudding so hard I felt it in my throat. He stirred, rubbed his eyes, and clung to me. I hoisted him onto my hip and stepped out of the truck. I wasn't hiding anymore. We walked up the driveway together. My father's stride was long and steady. I matched it, even though my legs felt weak. Halfway up, Linda spotted us. Her smile didn't drop. It froze like a cracked porcelain plate. Well, she called out brightly, raising her wine glass. Look who's back. Then she turned to my father. Tom, you're just in time for a drink. My father didn't look at her. He didn't look at the house. He looked straight at Mark. Where are her keys? He asked. His voice was calm, low. The same tone he'd used for decades when people were about to realize they were in trouble. Mark stood up, smoothing his polo shirt, like this was a neighborhood barbecue instead of a reckoning. Let's not be dramatic, Mark said. We were worried about Claire. She's been scattered, unstable. We took the keys for her own safety. You know how new moms can get. Something hot and sharp flared in my chest. That casual dismissal. That soft, polite cruelty. I'm not unstable, I said, stepping out from behind my father. I'm leaving. Linda laughed. Short, sharp, not amused. Leaving? She said. Where exactly are you going, Claire? You don't have a job. You don't have a car. You barely keep track of your own schedule. We are protecting you. Mark nodded. We're trying to keep this family together. Someone has to be responsible. My father stepped forward, placing himself squarely between us. You're not protecting her, he said flatly. You're controlling her. Linda's smile vanished. This is our house. And she is not your property, my father replied. Give her the keys. No, Mark said, crossing his arms. It's my car, my house. I make the rules. If she wants to leave, she can walk. But she's not taking my son. The air changed. Even the birds seemed to quiet. My father took one slow step closer to Mark. You want to talk about rules? He said. Let's talk about the law. You took her personal property. You restricted her movement, and if you try to stop her from leaving with her child, that crosses into unlawful restraint. Linda scoffed. She's hysterical. She needs her documents. My father said, turning to me. Go inside. Get your things. I'll handle them. I didn't hesitate. I slipped past Mark as he reached out, his fingers missing my sleeve by inches. Linda started shouting about trespassing, about calling the police, but my father cut her off. Go ahead, he said calmly. I'd love to explain this to my former colleagues. Inside, the house felt wrong. Cold, hollow, like I was standing in a showroom instead of a home. Every surface was spotless. Nothing felt like it belonged to me anymore. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started shoving clothes into it. Jeans, t-shirts, Ben's pajamas. I didn't fold. I didn't organize. I moved on instinct, fast and messy. My hands shook as I opened drawers. My breath came in short bursts. Panic buzzed through my veins, but underneath it was something else. Focus. I ducked into the bedroom and pulled Ben's favorite blanket from the crib. That's when I saw my father in the doorway, standing guard, his back straight, his shoulders tense. Dad, I whispered. He didn't turn around. I saw it, he said quietly. Months ago. I froze. The Sunday dinner when you didn't laugh, he continued. The way you looked at Mark before answering a simple question. I saw the light going out in your eyes. My throat tightened. I told myself it wasn't my place, he said. That marriage is hard, that I shouldn't interfere. I thought I was respecting your boundaries. His voice cracked. I wasn't. I left you behind enemy lines without a weapon. I stepped closer and put my hand on his arm. You're here now, I said. Then I reached under the mattress and pulled out a slim folder. There's something you need to see, I added. Inside were screenshots, bank statements, photos I'd taken when Mark left his laptop open, text messages between him and Linda, calm, calculated conversations about how to manage me. I hadn't stayed because I was weak. I stayed because I was waiting. I wasn't surviving, I said quietly. I was collecting proof. My father looked at the folder, then at me. His eyes changed. Let's go, he said. At the bottom of the stairs, Mark blocked our path. Linda stood behind him, phone in hand. You can't take him, she shrieked, pointing at Ben. That's kidnapping. I'm calling the police. My father descended the stairs one heavy step at a time, forcing Mark to back up. It is not kidnapping for a mother to travel with her child, he said. But preventing someone from leaving a residence is unlawful restraint, and lying to a 911 dispatcher is filing a false report. Linda's thumb hovered over her screen. Trembling, I walked past them without looking back. Outside, the sunlight hit my face, blinding and sharp. The air tasted different. Cleaner. Like oxygen after holding your breath too long. The drive to my father's house felt unreal. Quiet. Safe. Ben babbled in the back seat, pointing at passing trees, completely unaware that his mother had just dismantled her life to protect him. At my father's kitchen table, reality hit. I dumped the duffel bag down and spread the papers out. My hands shook as I flipped through them. The car, gone. Mark had sold the SUV my father bought me after Ben was born. 3 weeks earlier, $12,000. The bill of sale was right there. He used the money to pay off a credit card. Not his, Linda's. And then I saw the loan document. $40,000. Borrower, Claire Jensen. I stared at the signature. That's not mine, I whispered. My father leaned in. That's him trying to write like you. My stomach dropped. The educational trust fund my grandmother left me. $56,000. Gone. I tried logging into my banking app. Incorrect password. Locked out. The automated voice confirmed it. Balance 0. It wasn't control anymore. It was fraud. When Mark and Linda showed up later that evening, shouting about custody and threats, I opened the door calmly and handed Mark the envelope. Inside was everything. The forged signature, the car sale, the transfers. His confidence collapsed as he read. This isn't a marriage problem, I said evenly. It's a crime. I gave them a choice. Return the money by morning, or the file went to the district attorney. They left in silence, exposed, and powerless. 3 months later, I locked the door of my own apartment for the first time. It wasn't big. 1 bedroom, thin walls, secondhand couch from Facebook Marketplace. The kind of place where you hear your neighbor's TV through the drywall. But it was quiet, and it was mine. My bank balance wasn't impressive. My credit was bruised. I was rebuilding from the ground up. But every dollar in my account belonged to me. Every decision was mine to make. That alone felt like freedom. Mark was facing charges: fraud, forgery, financial abuse. The words sounded strange at first, like they belonged to someone else's story. Linda stopped calling when her lawyer told her to. Silence replaced control, and that's when the real truth settled in. I hadn't escaped because someone saved me at the last second. I escaped because I learned to see the cage while I was still inside it. That's the part people argue about. Whether I should have left sooner, whether I was wrong for staying. But survival doesn't always look brave in the moment. Sometimes it looks like patience, like documentation, like waiting until your child is safe in your arms before you burn the bridge behind you. I'm not grateful for what happened, but I am grateful I didn't lose myself believing their version of reality. Because control disguised as care is still control, and walking away from it is not failure. It's integrity.